Now, more than 3 billion pieces of junk mail were delivered to Britain's homes last year, and there could be a lot more to come. Royal Mail is planning to lift its current 3 items per week limit. That means more post for you, and according to critics, more expense too. Sky's Rose Gretton explains.
It's the doormat plague, a daily horror that confronts us as we enter our homes. And with Royal Mail planning to abolish their limit on how much junk we receive, things could be getting worse.
Now they say they're going to have an unlimited system. I think we're going to see pressure all around, and that's going to affect the amount of waste going to landfill. That's bad for the environment, but most of all, it's bad for council tax.
Royal Mail currently delivers around a quarter of all our junk mail, and it's now likely to increase. That'll mean more of this, filling up more of these, and that could be damaging. Landfill sites like this would struggle to cope, because the amount of junk mail waste is going up by 3% every year. It's resulted in a 15% rise in landfill tax this year, and in the last 12 months, £206 million more of council taxpayers' money has gone on collecting and disposing rubbish.
Who has time to actually be recycling junk mail? And I don't think anyone's bothered about recycling junk mail, to be quite honest with you.
Standing outside my house, the Royal Mail postman gave me lots of letters. I found none of them is for me. All junk mail.
Every single flat house we go into, there's tons of it just laying on the floor. No one reads it, it goes straight into the bin. Waste of time.
That may be so, but junk mail is booming business. It's also a source of good business for Royal Mail, but environmental campaigners say they should be acting more responsibly.
Now, what happens to that material is that it rots in the ground and produces methane, which is a very powerful greenhouse gas. Obviously, that's a major problem, and what the Royal Mail is proposing to do is, of course, only going to make that much worse.
The Royal Mail has responded by pointing out that 75% of junk mail is delivered by rivals, and that if they didn't do it, then other operators simply would. Not much consolation for the public, many of whom would rather see junk mail returned to sender. Rose Gretton, Sky News.
Well, let's talk more. I'm joined now from our central London studio by Daniel Silverstone, Chief Executive of London Remade, an organisation that advises councils on recycling, and also by Steve Barton, who's the CEO of advertising firm Keevill, Barton and Kershaw. A very good evening to both of you. Daniel Silverstone, let's ask you first of all, how concerned are you by Royal Mail's plans to change its limit?
Well, I'm concerned because I think it's feeding an unnecessary habit. We had 3.3 billion bits of junk mail delivered last year. That's a 22% increase on the year before. And evidence that I have available to me suggests that very large proportions of it aren't even read. And I think we have a different view about stuff that comes free through our letterbox. We're less likely to recycle it, more likely to throw it away.
Yeah, Steve Barton, 3.3 million bits of junk mail, nearly 80,000 metric tonnes of junk mail ending up in landfill sites last year alone. Should we be considering the cost to taxpayers and to the environment?
Well, I think there are two issues. The first one is relevance. A personalised piece of mail could be irrelevant, and an unpersonalised piece of mail could be relevant. So it's really about getting the right message to the right people. The second is an issue of recycling. The numbers I've read are 2% of household waste is related to direct mail. Also, I've read that 67% of mail is opened and 45% read. So I think junk is probably a bit of a misnomer.
Right. Do you think this would actually really make a difference, though? Is most junk mail actually addressed now? Because so many companies have huge databases, you know, what with loyalty cards and everything, that this wouldn't perhaps make that much difference?
I don't think it'll make that big of a difference. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I think it's about relevance, making sure you get the right message to the right people, and the data is available to be more efficient that way.
So, Mr. Silverstone, what do you reckon to that? It won't make much difference, and it's all recyclable stuff anyway, isn't it? So what's the problem?
I think it is recyclable, but as I've already said, I think there's quite a lot of evidence that it's less likely to be recycled than say, newspapers which you pay for. I think there's a similar trend, certainly in London, with the free news sheets, which are much more likely to be thrown away in and around the tube stations than papers you pay for.
Steve Barton, what demand is there from businesses at the moment to send unaddressed mail? 3 items a week Royal Mail allows so far. What could that go up to, do you think?
I don't really know the answer to that, but I know that we are queuing up to get in there because it is a good delivery system and it is efficient, and people do respond to it.
Right, but we're hearing that most of it goes in the bin anyway and it doesn't get opened.
Well, I hope a lot of it is going into the recycling bin. But again, a lot of people are reading it and responding to it. I mean, it's important to note that it would not carry on being the industry that it is if people didn't respond and it didn't deliver results.
Daniel Silverstone, in the age of mobile phones, emails, you name it, there are dozens of ways of communicating these days. Royal Mail does need to make money, doesn't it? The profits from this business helps keep the cost of postage stamps down.
And obviously I understand the dilemma that the Royal Mail is in, but as you've indicated in your question, I think in the age of mobile telephony, there are much more sustainable ways of targeting a broad brush of your customer group.
But this is very useful and a valuable way, isn't it, of communicating with local residents, whether it's a school that wants to advertise a fete, a church, you know, a harvest festival, perhaps a decorator or a plumber, you name it. These are local things that people need to know about.
Yes. Well, we've all got a responsibility to try and reduce the amount of stuff we're sending to landfill. And I think, I'm not suggesting that junk mail is the biggest single driver of the upward trend, 2 million more tonnes of waste generated this year than last. But certainly government department DEFRA seem to indicate, as I've already said, that a very large proportion of it is dumped unread and not recycled.
I mean, Steve Barton, I listed a whole load of things there. Who is it, which businesses is it that actually want this service, and is it of use to local residents?
Well, the top three are financial services, mail order, and charities. And charities is a great example where a lot of the funds that they get in to help people, whatever the nature of the charity, comes in through direct marketing, and they then go out and tell people about the work they're doing through direct marketing. It's absolutely fundamental importance.
Right, is there a way of targeting it more personally though? Because obviously if it's not relevant to somebody, they're going to throw it in the bin unread, aren't they? How is it being targeted more personally to those who receive this mail?
I think that's absolutely the critical point. Data helps, understanding what people are interested in, and then making sure you get them information. The other one is permission. So you send an email and find out if people want your mail pack. There's an example recently of someone who sent out an email and to about 50,000 people, and 442,000 people got involved with the campaign. And in that instance, the mail pack that came out in the second stage is now selling on eBay for £66.
Final thought from... Sorry, do you carry on?
Well, that might be part of the recycling solution.
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Silverstone, final thought.
That's a point I'm very happy to agree with, Steve. I think that sounds like a good idea. I'd also like to suggest that the direct mail companies print their pitches on 100% recycled paper. That would at least help create more sustainable conditions for us to live in.
Is that done, Mr. Barton?
And renewable forest paper, I understand, is one of the better ways to do it as well.
Well, it sounds like everybody's eventually singing from the same recycled bit of hymn sheet, so that's good. Steve Barton and Daniel Silverstone, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up next, slide of your life. Odds on a slippery slope.